There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
Alright, welcome to Media Mothership, broadcasting out of Edge Radio Studios in Hobart, Tasmania, Nipaluna. We stream on, of course, edgeradio.org.au, as well as across the FM bandwidth here in Hobart, as well as, YouTube and Twitch. You just need to find us by searching for Media Mothership. You can message us via the YouTube and Twitch station or SMS us on 0488 111707, as some of the topics we're doing might inspire conversation in yourself. Here on Media Mothership, we explore how media can shape our understanding of the world around us. And I am your host, Craig.
Craig.
We discussed it because it's the third thing you get. You get your bachelor, then your honours, then your PhD comes third.
That's right. The PhD, is some weird Greco-Roman numerical.
And
I'm joined, of course, by BA Zeke.
What's up? I'm in the studio.
He is, with all his bling, as well as MA Marcus.
What's up, homies?
And today's topics, we're continuing our exploration of House on Haunted Hill, looking at 5 minutes at a time. So we're up to, I think it's minute 35?
Yes, I
want to say. We're going to go into that, talking about that, but I want to take a slight detour because we're now, nearly halfway through the movie. And we've hit, I think, 3 really interesting kind of scare moments. So I want to unpack what good scares are via Alfred Hitchcock, as well as some techniques filmmakers use to create effective jump scares. So we'll do a bit of that. Then we've got news. We're going to, of course, touch on Henry Cavill leaving The Witcher. And, maybe some Godzilla news. We got IKEA sending lawyers to a game developer, So all that and more. What do you think about that?
I'm excited.
You sound it.
Thank you.
All right, so all that coming up more on Edge Radio 99.3. This is Media Mothership. Okay, welcome back to Media Mothership. I like having those kind of like, are we going into a song? No, we're going into hardcore talking now.
That's right.
So I want to set up the idea of, let's first go over the next 5 minutes of House on Haunted Hill. What we had was the characters. We had a jump scare with Nora finding a head in the box. Mm-hmm. She races downstairs, downstairs, I think. Then it's just about to hit midnight. Annabelle and Frederick, who are hosts, Frederick played by Vincent Price, now just tell everyone, okay, this is your last chance to leave. If you're going to stay here, then you've got a chance to win, I think it's $10,000.
$10,000,
in 1959 US money, so slightly more today. But if you want to leave, you can leave now. Then there's a bit of music that plays, creepy music, door slams.
Bit of kind of a wind sound as well.
Yep.
I think.
And then the housekeepers are gone, or the caretakers are gone. And it's like, oh, they left and they wanted to leave. Then it goes over the rules. So if you can make it through the night, you'll get this money. If you die,
it's the next of kin.
Yeah. Next of kin. Yeah. If he dies, the estate will still get money.
Pay, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then he says, but we've got party favors for everyone. Guns. So everyone gets these guns
and don't forget this detail, in little coffins.
Nice little dinky coffins. Each gun has a dinky coffin. So I think that's peak America.
Yeah.
Right? Peak, definitely 1959 America. Like if you're staying over in a haunted house and the challenge is to stay alive, then why wouldn't you give everyone guns?
Yeah.
Right, and of course, the ghost tour guide says this is pointless. They can't kill ghosts with
His own
guns.
Pritchard, I think.
Yeah, but then the idea is that there's a bit of back and forth with the husband and wife saying that maybe the wife's going to kill the husband with the gun.
One thing I found funny with the guns was that he picked up and he said how to use the gun, and then he fired it at a pot on the fireplace, but he was very close to his wife's head.
Yeah, right.
And she had no reaction to the gun whatsoever. She was "Yep, he just fired a gun right next to her face." You would have thought she'd be like, "Oh shit, my hearing."
Okay, so as anyone knows Chekhov's gun theory?
Yes, Chekhov's gun theory. If a gun is seen on stage in the first act of a play, it must be used in the third.
So, the challenge for House of Haunted Hill, how will those guns get used? Will they get used or not? All right.
That's right.
So, we've got a Chekhov gun moment. Was it 30 odd minutes into the film? What were your feelings of those 5 minutes?
It was pretty good. Not much scariness happens. A lot more. I think we've gotten past the first sort of scare bit, which is also established the house and its spookiness, and now we're sort of into the second act exposition, where they're sort of introducing new elements, and now they're locked in the house. So it's kind of just setting up the rest of the night and what might happen next. So it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I love the little guns in the coffins. I know you haven't had a chance to see it. What do you reckon about getting guns as party favourites in America?
I mean, it depends upon the gun. I suppose also depends upon the ammunition.
They were just like handguns.
And even still, it would also depend on the party. I mean, maybe if it was a hunting party, I'd be offended if I wasn't given guns. I would rock up, all ready to go out and shoot some deer, and I'd be thinking, I wasn't aware this was a BYO affair. Why would you invite me and not provide firearms?
Just shocking. Yep.
I don't actually hunt, but I do think that if we ate more venison, that would be good for our local wildlife, and that's all I'll say about that. And I need to stop ranting at vegans.
Wow. So SMSN now on. I forgot the numbers.
0488811707.
Yep. So because there wasn't any scare moments in it, I want to go over the last 30 minutes we've seen and 3 jump scares. And because one of the reasons we're watching this film is to use it as an entryway into talking about theory and filmmaking. So I want to look a bit about how scares are created and how we've encountered scares so far in this film with 3 examples. Now, I want to set it up by unpacking it in terms of 2 ideas. The first one is the classic Alfred Hitchcock bomb theory of suspense versus surprise. And I'll actually play everyone a masterclass that Alfred Hitchcock taught way back in, whenever. The date's not on this thing. But as an AFI master seminar, he was recorded telling this how to create tension and what the difference is between creating a moment of suspense versus creating a moment of surprise.
Now, it does say this is from the 13th of December, 2008. So I presume that's when he gave this lecture.
Yeah. Anyone got the date of death of Hitchcock? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't 2008.
It would have been the 70s or the
1970s,
80s.
Yeah. So weird bit of time travel here. All right. So here we have Alfred Hitchcock.
4 people are sitting around a table talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different because you've given them that information that in 5 minutes' time that bomb will go off. Now the conversation about baseball becomes very vital because they're saying to you, Don't be ridiculous. Stop talking about baseball. There's a bomb under there. You've got the audience working. Now, the only difference is, although I've been guilty of, in the picture sabotage, of making this error, but I've never made it since, the bomb must never go off. Because if you do, you work that audience into a state, and then they'll get angry because you haven't provided them with any relief. And that's almost a must. So a foot touches the bomb, somebody looks down and says, my God, a bomb, out of the window, then it goes off, just in time.
So Hitchcock's basically saying that suspense is only developed by leading up to the bomb explosion. It's not from the explosion itself, right? So to create effective suspense, it can be done by letting the audience know there's a bomb under, in this case, the table, and that creates in the audience's mind suspense, because when is that bomb going to go off, right? The difference there being that if you're just looking at surprising the audience, you just explode the bomb. But that would completely fail in creating suspense in the audience. And so Hitchcock then goes on to say, you know, one of the things he does is, you know, you just can't then explode the bomb. You've got to draw that out as long as possible to develop suspense. And if you are going to explode the bomb, make it work, right? So a bit like Chekhov's gun. If you're going to show the gun, make sure you use it. If your aim is suspense, and you've got the audience anticipating a bomb exploding, or in this case with House on Haunted Hill, a ghost appearing, you know, you hold that out for as long as possible. Maybe you don't show the ghost. You show the sounds of the ghost or something. And that creates suspense. So that's Hitchcock's idea of suspense versus surprise. Is that something that you think pays dividends? Is it something that you agree with, that creating suspense, you let the audience know and then you hold off as long as possible before you reveal it?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking before, I think probably the two best explosions in films that I have seen would probably be in the original Star Wars and in the original Die Hard films. Just because we are told with the Death Star trench run in Star Wars, we're told very early on that the Death Star is going to blow up a planet, and so it's all up to the Rebel fighters to get in there before it's able to get the shot off. And so the entire time you're waiting on the edge of your seat for the Rebels to fire that killing shot, and it takes them 3 attempts to do so, and even then they still need Han and Obi-Wan's ghost to bail them out.
Yeah, that's right. Look, and there's that masterful score in the background as each attempt fails, and then that kind of John Williams kind of building up that momentum with that final attack that Luke Skywalker makes. Yeah, it's a great example, I guess, of because that sequence goes for many minutes.
That's about a 15-minute sequence.
Yeah,
or a 10-minute sequence rather.
So your other one is from Die Hard.
Yes, the original Die Hard, where the entire way through the film, one of the MacGuffins is this sort of duffel bag full of detonators that McClane gets his hands on that the terrorists need back. And near the end, the terrorists get them, and McClane's limping around, and he actually sees that they've wired the whole roof with explosives, and there are 30 hostages on the ceiling, on the roof of the building. And as soon as he runs off to let everyone know, the main henchman puts a gun to his head and appears out of nowhere. And so instead of being able to actually go and let everyone know on the roof that it's about to blow, he then has to fight the main henchman. And it's a lot more interesting than if it was just a random fist fight in the middle of nowhere. Now we know that there's a ticking clock, and there's actually a lot more urge to that actual sequence.
Yes, yeah. So the audience knows the bomb's there. It's going to go at some point. We don't know. Well, there's a timer? We know kind of.
There's not a timer. It's remotely triggered, but I mean the characters don't know. The protagonist doesn't know when the main villains are actually going to push the button on it.
So there's 2 good examples. We're going to look at House on Haunted Hill now. We're going to expand somewhat on Hitchcock's idea of suspense versus surprise. There's a great YouTube by Studio Binder talking about what makes a great jump scare and 4 ways to terrify audiences. And we'll put the link to it in the show notes. They define 4 ways to terrify an audience member if you're doing a jump scare. Firstly, timing. So you can either do a shock or suspense jump scare, right? So much like Hitchcock's distinction, a shock jump scare is when there's a sudden and unexpected event, right? So if people were just using that Hitchcock example, people are having a conversation about baseball, then all of a sudden the cafe explodes. And like people go, oh my God, that's shocking, right? I didn't expect that to happen. That would be a shock jump scare maybe, right? The sudden sound of the explosion. Versus a suspense jump scare, which is created with a delayed but expected event. So you're expecting the bomb to go off. The audience has been told there's a bomb underneath the table. The people in the cafe don't know there's a bomb under the table. So the audience is there. A suspense is of anticipation of that bomb exploding. And this typically lasts, according to Studio Binder, 30 seconds to nearly 5 minutes in terms of the ability of a film director to really draw out that reveal to suspense moment. Second category is withholding information. Something's going to happen, but we don't know what or when. So again, maybe all the characters are looking at a door because they know there's a murderer in the house and they've blocked off all the exits and it's just the door that they come through. So, but it's withholding information in terms of we don't know exactly maybe when or where it might happen. Maybe they're walking through the house as well. Again, the idea being that you've limited what the audience can see or hear. There are a lot of shadows maybe in the shot, and we don't know where that creature's going to strike from. So you've withheld information by the way you've composed the scene, maybe in a lot of darkness around you. So I know 2 weeks ago we got to see Halloween at Rewind Cinema, and there's that great shot where Laurie, the final girl, is hiding in her bedroom, and then there's this black closet. Like there's a closet, doors opened. It's a famous scene, right? And it's just black. And then slowly we see Michael Myers' face.
Yes,
In that
he
darkness.
sort of his mask sort of slowly appears in the dark, which John Carpenter said is meant to simulate your eyes adjusting to the darkness, and he was there all along.
So Carpenter was withholding information, right? When we first see that scene, we don't see Michael Myers, but we have anxiety and fear because we know Michael Myers is around somewhere. And then that information is then shown as to where he is. It might be also combined with a sting, right? So in the Halloween movie, we'd have that kind of John Carpenter sting of Michael Myers' appearance, right? That kind of, what is it? That kind of ch-ch-ch.
Yeah, there are a lot of those like very short stings whenever Michael Myers is around or about to do something to sort of cue the audience in that something is happening or is about to happen.
Yeah, so a sting is typically a loud noise that accompanies when a jump scare is. So if Michael Myers does attack, it might be combined with some diegetic sound, the kind of sound of a knife being thrust into a body, someone screaming, right? A chainsaw, a cat screeching, right? There's a diegetic sound there, but there might also be musical sound, right? And finally, misdirection. Yeah, so if we know there's misdirections where the director is trying to kind of get the audience to think that the killer's going to come from one spot, right? We're doing a point of view maybe from the characters looking, and we kind of looking at the door, say, or it's guiding us to where we think the attack's going to come from, but then it comes somewhere else, right? The hand from under the bed suddenly or something like that. So that's 4 ways: timing, withholding information, sting, misdirection. So I want to look at 3 quick examples from House on Haunted Hill and to see what techniques we can hear as we're watching the scene. This is the scene 19 minutes, nearly 20 minutes into this movie where Lance and Nora have gone downstairs and Lance is convinced there's a hidden room, right? So it's building up this suspense in the sense that there's a hidden room there and there's going to be a reveal. In this scene, as we'll hear the door suddenly slams, leaving Nora alone. But we'll listen to the scene now and see what we can hear.
Go anywhere? Lance! Lance!
Yeah, we kind of, I think, have a sting, right? The music builds up, and then we have that kind of da-da-da-da. It's not very strong, right? And you could say that if you were watching it, you'd see that there's a bit of withholding information because the door slams, she's surrounded by darkness, and out of this dark space, we're hearing that sound effects in the background. It could be diegetic, the sound of the ghost, right? That kind of alien ghost sound. And then this ghostly figure emerges. So there's misholding information in that scene as well as a sting. Is it memorable? Did it make you get a bit creepy as you were listening to that?
Somewhat. It's a very sort of dissonant piece of music. They use it in a lot of those older horror movies. Basically making those sort of shrieking noises to put you in a very uncomfortable mood. The really big example there being the strings from Psycho, which were basically just designed to be the most discordant thing possible.
So it could be, yeah. So I do think the music's doing all the heavy lifting in that scene. Oh, and if you watch it, yes, the music combined with the withholding information that Nora's surrounded, like the door slams, and there's all these dark corners in the room, and the camera is, taking a very wide shot of Nora surrounded by this darkness, and then the figure appears and the face is illuminated. I'll play now what I think is another jump scare. So it's the scene again, where they're trying to hear if there's a second room in this room. So they're tapping on the wall in this scene. Nora and Lance again are trying to find where this hidden room is, and Nora has been left alone by herself in the room, tapping on the walls. Again, see if you feel there's any suspense building by the music cues that we can hear.
Tap lower down.
All right, real theater of the mind there. So I would say this wasn't a suspense jump scare.
No, this was a boo jump scare.
That's right. Yep, just a shock jump scare because there was nothing building up to that. It's a very mundane kind of just knocking on the walls, and it's
it's weird because they're like, you could argue there's an attempt at build up because they're knocking on the wall.
It's a mystery there. It's like the audience is going, "Oh, what's happening? What are they going to find?"
Yeah, but then it just sort of goes like, here it is.
And there's a bit of misdirection there because we're focused on her knocking at the wall, right? Doing that thing of kind of, is there different sounds as she's knocking against the wall? And then suddenly the ghost is behind her. Right? So it's a misdirect there in terms of the jump scares caused by us not realizing there's something behind her. Then suddenly, the ghost appears behind her. We have good use of sting in this case because she screams.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a big cue there of, if you're watching this in 1959 in the audience, you see this horrific ghost face in that scene, and she screams at it. So there's a lot of cues there that you yourself should probably be a bit scared. Because of the screaming that's there, as well as a bit of an audio cue there. They do that kind of string section, doing that quick kind of da-da-da-da-da-da kind of sound. What did you think, Marcus?
Yeah, it's look, it definitely helps to punctuate the jump scare, but I really feel like they could have had a lot more fun with some music in the build up to it with a bit of rising intensity. Because to go straight from just no sound other than knocking on the wall to immediately having the scream and the creepy music playing, it does feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity in my book.
Yeah, look, and it's interesting with House on Haunted Hill that the story goes Hitchcock watched House on Haunted Hill before he did Psycho. So this was before Psycho was an idea for Hitchcock. He saw this film and he was most impressed with how cheap it was in terms of how much they did with such a tiny budget. And from that idea, Hitchcock thought, well, yeah, I mean, there's something in this genre film of doing a kind of jump scare horror piece with a low budget and achieving it. So yeah, it's interesting that Hitchcock himself saw within House on Haunted Hill possibilities there in terms of how the audience reacted to this. It was a very successful film. Hitchcock saw it and thought, yeah, he can do that and better. So the last jump scare we're going to have a look at is the scene where, again, Nora's gone into her room, her accommodation for the night, and she's preparing herself to go downstairs now for the midnight rules session from Vincent Price. So that's the scene. Listen, do you think that this is a suspense jump scare or a shock jump scare? It's great theater of the mind there. I don't know if people playing along can hear that or visualize what's there. But by the so we have good sting. Yep. I think in that case we had, much like the previous scene, a jump scare sting with music cues, her revulsion. Right, so we heard less of a scream in this example, more of a kind of kind of, and again what she sees there. So she's preparing to go downstairs, and she walks over to a box, I assume, which she had usually put her necklace in or something. She opens the box, and there's a very gooey head.
Now, I forget, had that box been used previously?
No, it hadn't been set up at all. So it is a bit of I think a missed opportunity in terms of...
Yeah, like I think she went into a room earlier, and you might have seen it on the bed or something, but there was no attention drawn to it whatsoever. It was just already in her room.
Yeah, and I think that's where there was no anticipation of it. This was another shock scare.
Yeah, definitely a shock one. Yeah.
But it could have been a jump scare if the film director had shown the box beforehand, or maybe the sense that, I guess a bit like in Seven, here's another box scene, the scene with the box, what's in the box, building up that anticipation. I mean, that's a real good suspense scene.
They could have even had her pick it up off the ground, and then it feels a little bit heavy, and she's like, oh. And you go, oh, what's going on there? And then she puts it down and then opens it, and you're like, oh.
For Aussie millennials of a certain age, the whole "what's in the box" thing does lose a little bit of its sting. Because there was
a bit of a cliche now.
There was that children's show, "What's in the Box," with the yellow and red puppet. Yeah, it was on after Dragon Ball Z when I was a kid. I was like, you're going straight from this like hyper masculine violent show to a preschool show. Okay, fair enough. But I think a lot of people my age will sort of think of that and go, oh yeah. But still a very good scare in both cases, absolutely, especially for what it represents in Seven.
Yep. Yeah. So and I think so the box 1959 movie Vincent Price, House on Haunted Hill, had zero context of it being an object of kind of dread. So it's very much straightforward shock jump scare where it's a sudden and unexpected event. There's no build up to it, and the timing just comes down to when the surprise has been sprung. So it's when she opens it, and then we just hear again the sting. So again the kind of sound cue of horrific object and her diegetic screaming revulsion reaction to it.
The sting is really sort of it's like I suppose a trigger to say this is where you are supposed to be scared.
And look, you can see how effective Carpenter's Halloween is at creating language through the sting, right? So in this film, and I think maybe it's from that early developing cues of what horror movies are for audiences and filmmakers, this film doesn't really have a distinctive horror cue for its jump scare. It's, as we've seen 3 examples now of jump scares, 2 shock jump scares and 1 suspense jump scare, and the sting is not memorable, right? But it is repeated, right? That string, I assume it's a violin that's playing. We can listen to it again. It's not memorable, but we will listen to it again to see, what is the sting. Oops, sorry. I'll play it on the right machine. So here we go. So Nora is now walking over to the box. Bit of suspense. Well, no suspense, but here it comes.
Yeah, it's a whole like even
Horns.
a string quartet. There's horns, there's strings, there's woodwind instruments. I'd say it's definitely more of a Regatta de Blanc era sting than an If on a Winter's Night era sting.
Unpack that. So what were those 2 examples?
The musician Sting when he was with the Police and producing really good music versus when he was a bit older and producing pretentious, boring, uninteresting folk music.
I like where you went there. Yeah.
I was sitting on that for a while.
Yeah. So I think I think the sting we're seeing in House on Haunted Hill is late career sting, as opposed to the sting that John Carpenter employs in Halloween, which is early career, peak of his talent sting.
And they were contemporaries, so it's appropriate.
They were at that point. So there we go. We'll continue that exploration. Check the episode notes later on for the link to that Studio Binder unpacking of how to deliver jump scares. We'll continue using that.
We do have a comment as well on the Twitch chat from Gen Games. It Follows is one of the most suspenseful films I've ever seen.
Yeah, look, and I think the Studio Binder clip refers to It Follows as
I think it does,
a good example of one of those mechanisms of jump scare. Yeah, I mean it's interesting because the one it sets up as an example. It's worth watching the clip because the one they use as an example of how all 4 aspects of jump scares can be best delivered. That's good timing, good withholding information, good sting, and good misdirection is the scene in Exorcist 3. I don't know if you've seen Exorcist 3. Yeah.
I have to confess my sins. I've actually never seen an Exorcist movie.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
And you've missed Halloween. That's the peak kind of push. Anyway, so I have seen Exorcist 3. I saw it in the cinema way back, and there is a really effective scene in it. People will know it if they've seen it. It's the one in the hospital, which universally is considered, if you've not prepared yourself for it, a genuinely jumpy, scary moment. Yeah. So it's worth watching that. But if I've not seen that, It Follows. It's definitely on my list. You guys seen it? It Follows?
No.
Also haven't seen either of the It movies. I'm generally not a huge fan of unabridged Stephen King movies.
I do like how your mind works, though, Marcus. It is kind of free associating, right? It Follows, then to It.
It Follows is the second part of it, isn't it?
No. It Follows is a completely separate movie.
I'm exceptionally sorry.
You haven't seen either, so
I'm
it's
absolutely
fine.
showing
I do
my
like
ignorance.
the literal definition you took to It Follows. It's a good name for the sequel to It. It Follows.
I mean, it's the second part. It follows the OG. I mean, It Follows It. I'd like to apologise to all the horror aficionados out there that I'm insulting with my lack of
SMS
knowledge.
in now.
That's right, 0488811707.
Text in to say that Marcus is a complete and total normie.
It's all right. But I do hope your quiz mastering tomorrow night shows more encyclopedic knowledge.
I mean, the quiz tomorrow night, so for those of you who don't know, so I'm hosting a quiz at the Republic Bar and Cafe tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. Get there at 6:30 to grab a table and some food. It is free entry. The food, of course, will cost money because you have to pay the chef to buy ingredients and make it. I got some feedback because it is a repeat of one that I had a couple of months ago that had somewhat low attendance, and I was told it was quote unquote too hard. Some of the questions are a bit too obscure.
Do people groan? Do you hear like the audience members just groan when it's too hard? What's the nonverbal communication that goes on in audiences?
One I had, so every one of my quizzes has a hidden JoJo reference where there's something in there that is a reference to something that happens in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the manga and anime series. And there was one time where the JoJo reference was it was the question itself was how much stamina did the White Snakes at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3 replenish? The reference being that White Snake is the name of the main villain's stand in Part 6 of JoJo. It's the source of his powers. I just remember when I was reading out the answer, someone just said to me, "Only you know that." So that was sort of the verbal cue.
Only you know that.
Yeah,
it's a good heckle. It's a good heckle for a quizmaster.
That is, yeah.
Like the audience, someone in the audience is saying, "Only you know that."
It's not the first time I've had it. I remember the very first quiz that I wrote and hosted myself. There were two of my friends were on the table at the front, and the entire time through it, they're going, "Oh, it's only things that Marcus knows." It's like, I'm sorry that I included questions about Hitman and Wolfenstein: The New Colossus.
I guess it is tricky. I'd love to explore that challenge of doing an effective quiz show, but I guess it's about priming the audience in a way, knowing what the audience level's at and what they're expecting. Well, that was House on Haunted Hill for another week.
I also there's a follow-up comment by Gen Games that is just lol, probably in response to the
yeah, I'm going to let Marcus take that burn.
Oh, boy. Man, I'm sorry. Yeah, please forgive my sins, Gen Games.
All right, well, let's move on.
My name is Lee.
Oh, hold on, Lee. Sorry.
Originally grew up in New York City.
No,
but
Lee's not in the studio with us. Yeah, I forgot my Vox Pops have the same intro. Sorry, Lee. Okay, anyway, moving on to news now. I want to jump straight into the news which is really blowing people away, which is, why is Henry Cavill leaving The Witcher? Yeah, so there's a really interesting article in Forbes which tried to do a bit of forensic fandom into why he might be leaving. Because anyone seen the news on this that's here? The news that Henry Cavill's leaving The Witcher?
Yes.
The context?
Yeah,
what's the story there?
So, from what I understand, there hasn't been an official reason released yet for why he's leaving. It's mostly speculation at this point. Am I correct in this so far?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Excellent. I just want to make sure I don't repeat my my It Follows slip up of uninformedness. So it basically got announced on Sunday that he was not coming back for season 4 and that Liam Hemsworth was going to take over. It's actually funny. One of my friends on Facebook said, "This isn't a James Bond franchise," and I said, "Hold on a second. They're replacing a well-loved British hunk with a younger, prettier Aussie replacement. That's exactly what happened in James Bond."
Yeah, that only lasted one movie though.
That's a shame. George Lazenby's underrated. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Bond. There's been no official word. So the two main theories are that, one, because Henry Cavill is such a massive fan of the Witcher novels and video game series, and the people who are making the Netflix series aren't. So there's the theory that he's...
So that's one theory, that he left The Witcher because he wasn't happy with the direction it was taking. Like the showrunner, the other people... Well, we don't know who it was. I mean, this came from someone on this production saying, yeah, not everyone liked the source material. Some people were very dismissive of the source material. And so speculation is maybe Cavill was over it. The lack of good team synergy with the franchise.
So when you say synergy, is it that he was unhappy with the working environment or with the way the material was being adapted?
Well, yeah, this article in Forbes kind of unpacks it by saying, so Netflix secured the rights to The Witcher. They got Cavill to star in it at quite a cost, right? But then they've hired talent around Cavill, right? Writers, directors, so forth, who weren't fans. Some of whom weren't fans, it seems, right? And so the idea that they speculate in this Forbes article is much like you're saying, Marcus, that, could it have just frustrated Cavill enough that and allegedly there were moments where people weren't adhering to how Cavill felt this character would act. And Cavill constantly having to correct visions that others had.
He said before, Cavill said that on set he's made adjustments and stuff. Obviously he hasn't said because he was unhappy or whatever. It was on talk shows and stuff, in jest and everything. He was saying that he made corrections and stuff to how he thinks the character would actually be portrayed on film. And maybe that rubbed people the wrong way. If this story's true, maybe that rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, one of the reasons that could be one of the reasons that he was over it. He was like, okay, I'm not happy. Right? Is one reason.
That's one reason. The other big presumption or rumor, or I can't even think of the word, I'm sorry, very fried after this week, is that he obviously, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Black Adam and is looking forward to it, this is your chance to
no,
mute
people don't mute.
No, mute. Don't change the channel. Just mute it for a moment.
All
Don't
right.
change the channel. Just mute. Because Superman is in the post-credit scene of Black Adam.
Yeah.
The Rock is very keen for Cavill to come back, and so Black Adam and Superman can have a rumble. And it's basically been announced that Henry Cavill is coming back to the DC Extended Universe to play Superman again, and they're looking at making Man of Steel 2, and that he's essentially leaving The Witcher so he can commit to doing Superman again.
Yeah, and the timing seems spot on. I heard the reason why Cavill was kind of frozen out of the DC space as Superman was because leading up to Shazam, when they wanted Superman to appear in Shazam, allegedly, from what I read, the agent, Henry Cavill's agent, said if Henry Cavill was going to appear in Shazam in the post-credits scene in Superman, it would count towards one of his obligatory movie performances as Superman. Which pissed off, it seems from this article, pissed off the highs up strong enough that he was frozen out.
That does seem plausible. I mean, if you're contracted to do 6 movies and one of those is a 30-second cameo, you can imagine that they wouldn't be too thrilled with that idea.
And allegedly it was because a guy's moved out. I forget who it is now. That there was the DC Cinematic Universe
something
guy.
Hamada.
Right? Yeah, he left.
Yeah,
it seems, and that's how.
I think he may have got fired, but
because this also coincides with there being 2 new CEOs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So that guy left. The James Gunn.
Oh yeah, they've set up.
Other guy.
They've set up DC Studios.
Yep.
Finally, you'd think you would have done that ages ago, considering Marvel
Studios
they had. Is a thing. Well, I don't think it was ever called DC Studios. So they've now formed this all together, created DC Studios. James Gunn and the other guy who I cannot remember.
Yeah, the other DC guy. So we got James Gunn is handling the creative stuff, and the other one is handling the business one, presumes. But the real difference is that Marvel didn't really have a Marvel had the choice to set up Marvel Studios because they had a whole bunch of characters who they hadn't sold the rights to already. That's the reason why it took so long for Spider-Man, the X-Men, etc. to appear in the Marvel Universe. Whereas DC sold the rights to its big characters years and years and years and years and years and years and years ago to Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers has the rights to those characters. So I'm not entirely certain how they've been able to develop DC Studios to work independently of Warner Brothers, if in fact they are working independently, or if they're
maybe they've just put all of the rights into it because they own DC as well, don't they? Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers doesn't own DC. DC, I believe, is still its own entity. Because we know that the Mouse owns Marvel, but I still think DC is its own thing.
Maybe it's maybe it's not technically independent, but it's like a working relationship between both.
I think that's what's happening because Warner Brothers has made basically every single DC TV series. There have been a few exceptions, like the 1960s Batman series, I believe, was made by Fox. But by and large, the DC hasn't had the option to make DC Studios because most of its characters have already been licensed ages ago.
Yeah, so to return to the theory, so the second theory is that, Black Adam, under The Rock's influence, managed to get Cavill back as the DC Warner Brothers universe Superman. And, of course, if you've seen The Rock, we'd know that. The Rock, Black Adam, right? We'd know that. And the idea being that, that the money that Cavill will be getting in securing this new Superman deal is so much more, probably, than he could get for The Witcher, that he'd
and
he's happily
it's
taken.
probably to consider to add credence to this theory. I think Netflix have said that they're going to attempt to do 7 seasons of The Witcher. Whether that happens, who knows? But they've done 2, and maybe DC into the future are thinking that they're bringing back Henry Cavill. They want this to be the big extended universe, so they've probably gotten Henry Cavill to get out of the Witcher contract because they don't want him to do 7 seasons. Because in the future, they're hoping that he will be in many films that are happening in years to come.
So do you think Hemsworth might be another Witcher, or Hemsworth's coming on as playing the Witcher still?
He's going to be playing Geralt of Rivia.
Geralt. Yeah, I mean, it just seems such a risk, and I got to admit, and a lot of people on the internet are just speculating that can the Witcher survive the loss of Cavill, and the vibe seems pessimistic.
I think that it will be able to, given that it's already got a really big following. It had a big following even before the Netflix series. Before the Netflix series even started airing, people were criticizing it for not looking as good as the games or certain cosplays. So the whole idea that Henry Cavill is the definitive Witcher and it's an absolute work of art, that only happened after the series actually started. So it's been a very sort of fair weather fandom, I suppose.
Where, other examples, obviously you've got James Bond, where the leading actor has left and another actor's come on and the franchise has survived.
There's the Hulk, where Edward Norton. Edward Norton got replaced.
Well, it was Bruce. It was Eric Bana. Eric Bana, then
the
Edward
original
Norton.
Hulk is not part of the MCU.
Yeah, the Ang Lee Hulk.
Yeah, the original one with Eric Bana and by Ang Lee is not part of the MCU. But with the Incredible Hulk, they replaced Edward Norton, who played him in the Incredible Hulk, with Mark Ruffalo, and everyone agrees that Mark Ruffalo is better. Although Mark Ruffalo hasn't been able to headline any of the movies so far. What's another example where it's actually...
Yeah, look, it seems highly risky. Obviously you've got Doctor Who, which got around that issue of changing lead actor by developing the reincarnation or the regeneration idea, which I've heard came up like the 11th hour on the Doctor Who space. Like, it wasn't, the Doctor didn't begin in those first seasons as a regenerating Time Lord. That was added to explain the casting change.
Yeah, it took until the 4th season for them to bring it in. And even then, in the 4th season of Doctor Who, the first 2 stories are still the original Dr. William Hartnell before he regenerates at the end of the 2nd story. And even then, originally regeneration was explained as being a feature of the TARDIS and not something that the Doctor could biologically do.
Wow. Well, look, on that bombshell, we'll have to wrap up and maybe explore that issue in the future. It's fascinating when the DNA of a character gets developed over time and plot inconsistencies abound. But that's been Media Mothership for another week. I've been Fud Craig.
Fud Craig.
Joined by MA Marcus.
Thank you for having me, as always.
And BA Zeke. Woo. Woo. Bring in the energy. All right, so keep listening to Edge Radio 99.3 FM. Coming up next, we've got You Can't Sit Down with Adrian.
That's right. And this is Let's Get Exotic by Eddie and the Low Tides, Tassie Artists.